A playlist original.
Jackson is actually here on this latest episode of Back to the Blockbuster. I quickly said, like, yeah, he won't be on as often because he's busy. And just a week later, here he is, free for the weekend from his classes. So, welcome quickly back for this episode.
Back. It's hurting me not being on every episode like normal, but my next few weeks are looking like they'll be pretty standard. I will be able to come home, so I'm out of the province for school and got a very demanding schedule, which is why I won't be on as much. But it's just temporary, just till the end of the year. Then we'll be back in action. But it looks like I'll be able to come back every weekend. For the remainder of the month at least, so we should be able to get in some news and even some anniversary stuff. The downside too to this schedule that I got being as crazy and hectic as it is my watch capabilities have like tanked. I got one watch in this week though, which I was excited to get the rewatch in of Silence of the Lambs. So I showed my girlfriend that movie for the first time. It had been like a few years off that last watch for me, so it was like very soothing and relaxing to come home from PEI on Friday night and curl up and watch a movie. I hadn't done it in like a week, so that was exactly how I wanted to spend my weekend. And I did get another secret watch in that I'm holding off for sharing for now. That'll be relevant down the line. But we haven't chatted what we've been up to and watched in a bit because we usually have such a regimented schedule. But what have you been able to catch lately? Anything good?
Yeah, I was. It was funny because I was telling a friend because we didn't record together last week, and my friend Kayla was like, "Well, was it weird not doing it with them because you got it so many weeks in a row?" And I was like, "It was a little weird because I was like, I got up on Monday, like knowing we had like I had to do the episode today, and kind of not thinking
Right.
that you
Yeah.
can do it." And usually when we record on Mondays, we message each other like, "Hey, what are we doing? What are we covering?" So there's like communication before we do it.
Yes.
And like hours have went by and I was like, oh yeah, he's not on today, so like I had to like and it's funny because I already messaged JC to be on. We have a lot of friends of the show that are gonna pop on a lot to help out, and he basically was like, oh yeah, you already talked to me about it. I was like, yeah, I know. It was just like it's so like habit now to do this
Right.
every Monday with you, so yeah, that was a little weird, but I think we'll get used to
I
it
imagine.
in a little bit.
Yeah.
um
Like I said, it won't be too
I
long.
I'll tell you what I watched, and then I do want to hear what you thought about rewatching Silent Lambs, and I guess what your girlfriend thought about it. Was it the first time she had seen it?
Yes, yeah, I believe so. Oftentimes she'll hit me with I think I've seen this before, but I think it was like a circumstance where she might have seen like a scene or something from like
Yeah.
TikTok or something. But it was her first time. She really enjoyed it. It was. I think she likes a police procedural sort of stuff and dark detective thrillers. So that was right up both of our alleys. I mean, I'd seen it many times, but she thought Anthony Hopkins was like gross as Hannibal Lecter. I was just sitting there like mesmerized at his performance, and I would look over at her, and she'd be like, "Ew!" Like especially like some of his improvised scenes where he's being weird cannibal was it was funny to watch somebody's first watch of it. But she overall really enjoyed it.
That's good. Well, I guess we kind of both watched something serial killer adjacent because I watched Trap on Thursday night. They sent me a digital copy of it. I missed it in theaters, and they sent a digital copy to me because it's out on digital now.
What'd you
I was very curious.
I know the consensus has been all over the place.
Yeah, I was really curious how I would think about it. Like, it didn't get like god awful reviews. I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is like 58%, so it's kind of like in the middle. For what people kind of thought about it. So I will say this: you have to suspend a lot of disbelief to buy into the overall plot of it. I mean, it really is like, okay. Well, I mean, I guess from the trailer, like you get the idea, like, hey, they set up this trap for like a serial killer that they think is going to be at this big concert of this huge pop star, and they do explain later in the movie how they were able to set up said trap. Because like when I was watching it, because it had been like 30-40 minutes, and I was like, are they even going to explain like why they think he's there and why this would actually work? They do give a reason, and I guess it's a decent enough reason for the movie. But even with that reason, I was like, would they really go through all this just to catch one guy? And I still don't know. I wish I knew more people that like worked in that particular film, like when they actually do something like this to set someone up and catch them. So I found myself watching, being like, all right, this doesn't make a lot of sense. This feels kind of dumb. Like,
Okay.
okay, this is really reaching. But at the same time, it was entertaining in most spots. Josh Hartnett was really good in it. He was great.
Yes, it's been described as like a showcase really for his acting, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him, and if for no other reason, I'd watch it for him.
yeah, he goes. I mean, he perfectly bounces from like the character, almost like a cheesy kind of happy-go-lucky dad is trying to be cool for his daughter, taking her to this concert. So there's a lot of like stuff like that he's doing, and then there's just
Mm-hmm.
all these switches. So when the person he's who he really is, and then and there is like a lot of like psychological stuff, like kind of diving into a man that's kind of like living in two worlds where he is a father and a husband and also a serial killer. So balancing like
Mm-hmm.
these two different parts of his personality, which would have been really interesting to go into if the movie had been a little longer, or if most of the hook wasn't like the stuff at the concert. Because
Right.
even though the third act is another suspension of a lot of disbelief to make work, um, there is some good monologue stuff that he gives and some good acting stuff that he gives that really plays into the whole like him trying to uh really live in two worlds, and what that kind of did to his psyche and all that stuff was really
Okay.
interesting. Like really interesting writing, and and then when I'm watching it, I'm like M. Night Shyamalan, we talked about it with the Sixth Sense and how he's been in various movies since then. Like some
Right.
of that dialogue was so good, and it was like, okay, this is a sign of someone who's a really good writer and can really be really good when he wants to be. But then some
Mm-hmm.
of the other stuff was just so implausible that I was like, I couldn't buy into it totally, but I was still entertained. I mean, I didn't hate it. Um, but you really have to like, almost feel like, all right, I got extra dumb to be like, all right, I guess this works
Okay. Let
for
me ask you
what it
this:
is.
was there a good reason for uh, revealing the twist in the marketing of this movie, or do you think that should have been kept as a reveal later in the plot? Like, was there a reason? Because I thought that was a
No,
really big swing.
I think that was a big swing, and I mean, I think from a marketing standpoint, they probably thought like that would be the hook to get people to go see it.
Right.
Um, I kind of wonder if it would have been better if that would have been hidden. I don't know how you market the movie without revealing it, but it probably would have been a little bit better if it was a secret, because you don't really get it until about 15 minutes into the movie that's
Okay.
what's going on. It really is like a setup for this big concert that he's taking his daughter to, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's all these little conflicts between like the daughter and some friends she got into it with in school that like you kind of find about off screen, and they're at this concert and like in better seats, and the mom's there, and the mom runs into him on different occasions, like trying to apologize for her kids. There's all these little like subplots that are going on that make it like a normal story in the beginning, and
Right.
then they kind of introduce that element of it, that he's a serial killer, and that the concert itself is set up as a trap for him. And now there are all these little like nuggets in there before that give you a hint. There's like a lot of police activity at the concert. There's a lot of like SWAT at the concert. But if you didn't know
Right.
the hook, you could just say like, oh, this is a high profile pop star, she's a big celebrity. Maybe they're trying to being overly cautious, trying to make sure that nothing goes wrong at the concert. So if you didn't
Right.
know that was the hook, then you're like, all right, that might explain that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, they had a similar issue with the movie Abigail. Like someone said that wouldn't it be better if they hadn't revealed that the little girl in the trailer and the previews was actually a vampire, and like kept that a secret. Um,
Right.
Maybe it would have been for a movie like that too. I kind of think this could have been the case with this as well, but again, I guess I don't know how you market it properly without revealing that. But
I suppose that would be a challenge too, but just felt like such a great twist opportunity that was. I thought of. I always assumed that there was another bigger twist that would be revealed in the movie because they were going to take the liberty of revealing from the get go that Josh Hartnett was the serial killer. But I still don't know if
yeah,
that is the case or not. But interesting. So, like, how would you rank it amongst Shyamalan's filmography?
it's kind of mid. I don't think it's much. I don't think it's much as amongst his worst. It's not like The Happening
Right.
or Lady in the Water.
That's hard to
Tar
beat.
was the other one,
Yeah.
or Last Embed or anything like that. I mean, I was still
Yeah.
entertained, and like it was, but there's a good story in there. So it's a good, like we talked about the Sixth Sense. He's a good storyteller. He comes up with a good overall story. It's like there's the hook is
Right.
interesting, right? To have this like normal guy be in this kind of situation where uh he could technically be caught amongst all these people, because they don't know who he is or what he looks like. They just have this profiler that's on the scene, and they do have a clever way of him finding out what the the FBI and everyone is talking about while they're at the concert, because he's able to steal like an earpiece from someone that works at the concert. So the whole time, he is, even with his daughter, he has this earpiece in his ear and he can hear what they're saying and like where they might be at the concert, and like so he knows how to avoid them in like certain moments. So that was interesting and unique. But I mean, it's just a huge kind of, you have to really go like, I guess in movie world this would be possible. I just kind of went with it and enjoyed it for Josh Hartnett's performance at least. And M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, she's the pop star in the movie. She the music that she has in it, I think her name's Salika Night Shyamalan. She the music's pretty good. It sounded like genuine like pop music that you would hear from a big pop artist, and I know she performed it all, and she is a musician by trade, so that was pretty good.
Okay, neat. Yeah, he's been supporting both of his daughters this year with some in different capacities with his daughter directing.
I guess she had also. I guess she has only done stuff for him. She's done songs for his Apple TV series Servant. She did some stuff for Old in 2021. She actually got to act a bit in this too. She had some. It's not like she's the greatest actress, but she. They utilized her a lot in the third act. I think that surprised me. I thought they were going to use her just as like the pop star at the concert, because eventually the action does leave the concert. And if you ever see it, I'll leave it up to you to think like whether that was a good idea or a bad idea. I know some people that think that the movie falls apart once it leaves the concert. Other people actually think the third act's pretty interesting, at least, but she's involved in that a lot. And she does have to actually do some acting, and she does some decent stuff in it. She's not the best, but enough to get by. And
serviceable.
Something like this. I'm just probably giving like a lukewarm reception of this movie, but I think if you shut your brain off completely, you'll find something to be entertained by it. And I think everyone's down for like this stage of Josh Hartnett's career that he's in now, where he's just been in a lot more stuff, and like he's showcasing that he's a pretty good actor, and he does steal the show here. It's his movie. It probably would have been a lot worse without him. So at least I can say that.
Well, look at you. You always find something positive to say. Optimistic, exactly. Unfortunately, it's not high on my radar right now. But that being said, I've seen most of M. Night Shyamalan's films, so I'm sure eventually. Actually, I didn't see Old yet either, so maybe that might be like a couple that I bang out here shortly. Because Old, while it also had some mixed reception too, I thought the premise for that was pretty cool too. Like, that's the thing with him as a director; he's bulletproof with his elevator pitches for movies, but the full execution seems to not usually pan out to different different levels, I suppose. But I will probably check it out. I'm not going to avoid it, but it's like I said, I got lots of other things to get out of the way. But what with me being so busy and everything, I unfortunately I've hardly had the chance to even like kind of keep up with the news, which is super foreign to me. I'm usually always looking at different stuff. We're chatting, sending news stories to each other as things come out, and when there's casting announcements or directors attached, or when things fall apart. But I'm really out of the loop over the last week at least. So I know we are going to tackle a few stories today. I'm not even sure that I'll even have heard any of these, but I'll be curious to see. But what is up on deck for us?
All right, just gonna lob a couple of it. The first one we're gonna talk about, JC from Merc with the Movies. We talked about it last week, but I do want to get your opinion on it. We brought up the whole Megalopolis trailer and the use of fake AI generated critics quotes that they use in the trailer. So the trailer dropped a week before last, and we already know the movie's like pretty polarizing, and that it's gotten very mixed responses out of the film festivals that it premiered at. And the trailer came out, and they actually played into that. And at the start of the trailer, they had these quotes from critics where they were showing like basically little blurbs of bad reviews from his previous movies,
other movies.
So they had one for like The Godfather and Apocalypse Now and Bram Stoker's Dracula, like negative reviews, basically trying to say
they were real reviews. They were real. Weren't they not?
No, well, what we found out the day the trailer came out, Vulture was the first one to notice that they were in fact fake. And when
I didn't know that part.
And then when they dug into it, they found out that they used AI to generate said fake quotes and actually, but still use reputable like trades like the Village Voice, stuff like that underneath those quotes. Um, Lionsgate took full responsibility for it. They pulled the trailer. I don't even know if they put out a new one yet. Since this happened, they blamed it on the third party that they used to handle promotion for the movie, but still said that they should have been responsible for uh, seeing what was being put out there before it was released to the public. Kind of want to get your thoughts on the idea of, because like what I said to Merck last week was, I was like, I feel like any intern or anyone could have gone online and found one mixed review of any of his movies, or even that one.
I'm sure there's
If you
lots. Yeah.
if you actually took the time to look, even for The Godfather or Godfather Part 2, there's someone out there that did enjoy it. So I think what kind of convinced people that it could be real, because even when they showed the one for The Godfather, I was like, all right, that could be possible. But then they started doing ones for Apocalypse Now. I know that got a mixed reaction initially when it came out, and you know, and over time, it's viewed as like, a masterpiece at this point. But movies like Bram Stoker's Dracula weren't universally loved either, and there could be bad reviews for that. So that's why I believed it to be true, and I thought it was brilliant marketing to lean into, hey, he's not always perfect, but he's provocative. That kind of
and
marketing.
And look at how these movies are looked at in the future compared to
Over
like
time, yeah.
Some of these things that were said about them at the time of release. Like all those three
Right.
movies that he's made are regarded as like classics, some of the best that cinema has to offer. So I didn't watch the whole trailer, but I did see some like different accounts that I follow were posting snippets
Yeah.
of those lines, those what I believed also were real quotes from. Okay, so here's the thing that I'm not totally sure on though. So did they attribute these fake AI generated quotes to real critics, or were the critics' names made up as well?
And that was the big issue.
What?
So that was
like, I've never heard of anything like this before.
That was a very, very, that's a bold swing and bold move that no one would notice. And
that's like very negligent and lazy. Yeah.
And they had a marketing consultant that was responsible for it. They got rid of them. So just to give you an idea, there's like one for The Godfather that says diminished by its artsiness that they attributed to Pauline Kael from The New Yorker. She's a real person that wrote for The New Yorker. There are a lot of other ones that were all on, but they're all generated by AI. None of them are real. And what's funny is that a lot of these critics that they used to say wrote bad reviews of said movies, like Pauline Kael, for example, with The Godfather, wasn't true. She in fact loved the movie. So it's not only is it fake, but you're lying about how they felt about the movie with these fake
next
quotes.
level.
And they did use ChatGPT to actually generate the negative criticism about his work from well-known reviewers. So that was a big issue. And then Lionsgate said, we are immediately recalling our trailer for Megalopolis. We offer our sincere apologies to the critics involved and to Francis Ford Coppola for this inexcusable error in our vetting process. We screwed up. We are sorry. Is that even enough?
There's really no excuse for that. I know that we've both been weary of how AI will be used in the film industry, and there are a lot of legitimate ways that we have yet to see how it might disrupt movie making. This is nowhere near where I thought or how I thought AI would be used. This is a very like out in left field sort of mechanism. I am shocked because I'd seen that and I did hear the rumors that the trailer was being pulled, and I didn't take the time to investigate why. I didn't see anybody explain. It's kind of in one ear out the other, but this is the very first that I've heard about them being fake and AI generated and whatnot. That is crazy. And to attribute them to legitimate critics is just next level. Interesting. That is very, never saw that coming at all.
And by the way, this could have been very great marketing had those quotes been real.
It was effective when I saw it.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, any intern with half a brain could probably found some on their own.
That's
and like, hey,
there's no reason.
And use these. By the way, I mentioned this too last week. Lionsgate has made blunder after blunder this year. I mean, they had Borderlands. They made like 17 million worldwide on a $120 million budget. They were a part of the Crow remake, which opened to 4.6 million on a $50 million budget. That's dead already. they got
Oh
this,
man.
a very expensive pickup, even though they're not paying for the marketing, but a very expensive pickup, and they screwed up with this. At least the marketing part of it so far. Um, I don't know. It's crazy how legitimately
I
stupid
sense
this
I
is.
sense a leadership shakeup maybe imminent at that company after, because
Yeah,
that's three huge blunders like in rapid succession. Like
yeah,
Borderlands only came out a couple weeks ago. The Crow just arrived and nosedived, and then this
yeah,
was within the week. So that is too many significant hiccups to not address, I think. So that's,
yeah,
I'm sure maybe in the future we'll be talking about a shakeup there. That's crazy. I had no idea
yeah.
Lionsgate was involved in Borderlands.
Yeah.
So yikes.
They're not having a good year.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and you know, yeah. Who we didn't hear from actually was Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, maybe he was just like, I have to deal with so many other things with this movie that I don't even want to address this because it's not
So
his
many
fault. He
yeah.
wasn't involved
No,
in
that's
this.
not him.
This
I
was
feel
a
bad
full
for the
on
guy.
marketing team. So yeah,
Really Murphy's law as applied to this movie. Everything that could have gone wrong so far pretty much has.
yeah.
And it just shows no sign of letting up. But when does it premiere? Is it not this fall?
I believe it's September 27th is when it opens, or the
Okay.
20th. I can double check. But yeah, it's soon. And even with all this like curiosity around it, because even if it's negative, I don't even know, is that enough to even secure at least even a decent opening weekend, or like where does this go? Is this destined to like open, fall away, fall apart, disappear, and then just become this like really like deep cut cult classic way down the line? I don't know what its fate is right now,
Yeah, it's
basically.
anybody's guess right now.
Yeah. Another one I wanted to throw at you is about Wolves, which is the Apple TV Plus movie that's opening in limited theaters now,
Okay, it was
for
theatrical. Okay, interesting.
a limited run for 7 days. That's it. In a
Okay.
little under a little, maybe a couple hundred theaters, and then on their streaming service on the 27th, exclusively after that. Um, there are two parts of the story. One's from last week, one's new, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on both. But the New York Times wrote an article about what everyone was paid to do Wolves going into it. And everyone in the article, and then everyone that looked at the article and kind of did their own version of the story, we're trying to see like what financial sense does this make from Apple TV Plus to throw that much money at a project like this and then pivot it out of theaters and then just throw it on their streaming platform. Um, Allegedly, George Clooney and Brad Pitt were paid $35 million each to star in it. And director John
That's
Watts,
almost the
yeah, that's like
entire production budget of Alien Romulus
the
on two
Romulus. Yeah,
actors.
that's what a lot of people said too. That was the
Holy
prime example.
shit. Is that right?
And
That's funny.
then,
That's immediately what came to mind.
yeah, and
Oh my god.
even John Watts, they said was paid $15 million to write and direct it.
5-0 or 1-5?
1.5,
Okay.
which
That's pretty hefty too.
that's piggybacking off of three big Spider-Man movies. That's good for him because
Yep.
before the MCU Spider-Man movies, he was not making big films. His films were very small and I think barely got theatrical runs. And I mean, I part of me was like kudos to him for landing a
Yeah,
paycheck
that's
like that
great.
to write and direct a movie. But that's just on talent alone, and that's not even the full budget of the movie. And everyone was like, "How does that make sense to do that if you're not going to
Hmm.
release it theatrically and just throw it on, the streaming platform?" Um, it premiered at the uh, Venice Film Festival over the weekend. Decent reviews. It's at 71% right now. I feel like that could drop
Oh.
a little lower, depending on
Yeah, that's not terrible out of the gate. Like that's not
uh,
bad. I remember we
apparent.
discussed the trailer and we weren't really
Yeah, we were really
interested in it.
enthused by it.
Yeah.
It's the best debut on Rotten Tomatoes George Clooney has had since 2016. It says since Hail Caesar, so that I didn't realize that was that long since he's had a
Wow.
fresh
Yeah.
film on Rotten Tomatoes.
He's not
But he has
acted a
taken
whole
some
lot though.
breaks
Yeah.
in the middle of that, right? Um, but I think he heard this story, and George Clooney is trying to come out around it, and I want to know whether or not you believe his take on this or not. Um, he said it's going to get a limited release in a couple of hundred theaters, and I want to talk about what it said we're being paid. He said it was an interesting article, and whatever her source was for our salary, it is millions and millions and millions of dollars less than what was reported. And I'm only saying that because I think it's bad for our industry if that's what people think is the standard bearer for salaries. I think that's terrible, and it'll make it impossible to make films. And said that we wanted it released in theaters, but then said when we found out that it wasn't going to be released in theaters, we took a portion of our salary back. So like that was the statement that made me say like, I wonder if you were paid a lot, and then you're like, oh hey, then we siphoned some of that off once they pivoted from a full theatrical release to a streaming release. I'm so jaded when it comes to celebrities telling the truth. I don't know.
I know, like you never really know.
And you know
But
how some
that
people think, people are throwing stones because Robert Downey Jr. is getting like $95 million to do 2 Avengers movies, and then like these huge actors' salaries are a big bone of contention, especially when we're living in an age where like the concept of the movie star and names being enough to sell a movie is enough to get people in seats, and that's not necessarily true. You have Tom Cruise that's still doing it. You have people that seem that they're about to do it, like Glenn Powell seems like he's on that trajectory
right.
of being a name movie star. George Clooney and Brad Pitt, no matter how great they are, and they've been in great films, this is not Ocean's Brad Pitt and George Clooney. They don't command the same demand anymore to put
Right.
butts in seats. So wanted to ask you like what you thought about what they are allegedly paid, if that makes sense for Apple to even do that, and if you actually buy what George Clooney said about like it's actually less than that, and if it was, how much even less it could have been.
Well, I don't have all the facts in front of me, so like what I want to say, regardless of the facts, if they were paid anywhere even close to $35 million a piece, in no way, shape, or form is that like good financial behavior from Apple. Like that, simply find another actor that doesn't command such a salary. Like I was just thinking when we mentioned that, like, yeah, I literally love Brad Pitt. I'm one of those people that his name alone, I would go see him play a tree. Like I don't care. I love Brad Pitt to death. George Clooney, I like a little bit less, like just because I've seen so many more Brad Pitt movies. I really like George Clooney too. Like you mentioned, Hail Caesar. I think he's fantastic in that movie. And we've also kind of been deprived a little bit of him in recent years, where he's not been, acting as much. He's admitted it too. So yeah, I would, and I remember seeing the trailer and seeing both their names as at the front and thinking that's a great pairing. It's been a while since we saw them together. But then the trailer kind of underperformed. But in any sense, regardless, if they're consulting Brad Pitt and George Clooney to join this movie, and their agent says, "Yep, you can get George or Brad for $35 million," there is a lot of great, even B-list talent you can get for far less than $35 million. Like that just seems, again, like negligent spending.
Yeah.
Great to have them both. Like I think if you could manage a significant salary cut, if there was a project that they were interested in doing enough that they weren't going to take their regular salary, take advantage of that. This makes literally no sense. I never in a million years would have dreamed that was what their salaries were for this movie. A movie from maybe like a Tarantino or a Nolan movie, who they probably would take that salary cut to work with that director, but that would make more sense because a director like Nolan or Tarantino are going to bring big box office dollars.
Right.
Like that's hard to imagine. However, when it comes to like believing in George Clooney's statement there, I don't have any reason not to. I think it would be kind of risky to come out so defiantly against that news and say so with such authority that this is not the case, if it could be so easily disproved by somebody else in the production. So that makes me think like what he has to like, that just wouldn't be in his best interest to deny it. If no comment would be like the right play. But you never know. Like I just don't, just because I don't have the reason not to believe him doesn't mean that it's true. So I can't really, I don't really have an opinion, but in whatever way, it's not their fault. If that's their salary, that's what they think, that's what they're worth for their performance, and someone's crazy enough to pay them that, no fault of Brad Pitt or George Clooney's, if you ask me. It is ludicrous, but
that's a great point, because a lot of people they've commented on this. They commented on Robert Downey Jr. and they're like, in no world should an actor be paid this much money for a movie. No. And you can agree with that, but then almost some of the comments were almost saying that they shouldn't accept such large amounts of money. Or like, well, I mean, you wouldn't turn it down. I mean, if you're willing to pay,
it's not their fault.
Willing to pay me that, like, if you're
that's a studio's fault.
Yeah, and in the case of Robert Downey Jr. and what he's being paid for those 2 Marvel movies, I mean, he was a large part of why the MCU was so successful for a long time. So they think he's worth that. So I mean there's a lot of examples to back it up. So there's that. Even if like this isn't as true, that's what George Clooney and Brad Pitt were paid. If it's a little bit less, I still think that's kind of ridiculous too, because they really aren't the draws they used to be. So I think when you're not the draw that you used to be, your paycheck should reflect that, I guess. And that only seems fair. We were trying to think of what movie George Clooney been in that made a lot of money in a really long time, and Merc went all the way back to Gravity. I know
that's what came to mind too.
And he's not even the focal point of that movie. That's Sandra Bullock.
No, he's hardly in it.
Ticket to Paradise, the one he did with Julia Roberts, made some decent rom-com money. Like worldwide, it was pretty big. It did decent numbers here, and
we're talking 2 decades.
So it's like, it's been a long time since he has had like a huge like box office hit. Brad Pitt has fared a little bit better. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a big hit. Bullet Train made
not that long ago
some decent money, but that's not always the case with him either. Apple, I don't know what I mean. That F1 movie they're doing reportedly had a $300 million budget. Bruckheimer kind of came out against that and said it's not that much money, but wouldn't say how much it was.
Of course.
And the crazy thing is, everyone that's been talked to about Apple pivoting from the theatrical release say they're upset with it, but won't explain why they did it.
They're upset about. Knows. So what exactly? Maybe I'm not clear on what happened. So they did release it limited for a week.
So no.
And then they've.
So what's happening was it got announced as a theatrical, like exclusive theatrical release, and then when they announced a sequel to the movie some weeks ago, in that same news, they were like, "We're greenlighting a sequel with those guys. They're in it. John Watts is going to write and direct it again, but also we're pivoting the first movie that's not even out yet from its theatrical release to a limited 7-day run, and then it's going to premiere exclusively on Apple TV Plus. It won't be in theaters after that."
So and they haven't explained why they did that.
Haven't explained why. And George Clooney in that same thing. Press conference he was at, he said, yes, we wanted to release in theaters. We've had some bumps along the way. That happens. He said, when I did The Boys in the Boat, we did it for MGM, and then it ended up being on Amazon, and we didn't get a foreign release at all, which was a surprise. There are elements of this that we are figuring out. You guys are all in this too. We're all in this industry, and we're trying to find our way post-COVID and everything else, and there's some bumps along the way. It is a bummer, of course, but on the other hand, a lot of people are going to see the film, and we are going to get a release in a few hundred theaters, so we're getting a release. But yeah, it would have been nice if we had a wide release, but they won't say why they made a decision to not give it a wide. My
mind goes back to last year with Killers of the Flower Moon and how that disappointed at the box office. Maybe they're thinking if Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Robert De Niro can't bring, a successful box office run to an Apple original, maybe how much faith should we put in John Watts and Brad Pitt and George Clooney? But they had marketed this as a theatrical release well after Killers of the Flower Moon's box office disappointment, so that I'm finding holes in that. So I'd be curious to know why. I really wish they would commit more to theatrical releases with their original product, but I'm not holding my breath yet. They're also a studio that has been like in the red quite a bit since they've begun their operation, have they not? They have a lot of money and a lot of movies that nobody's even heard of. Like that.
Yeah, that goes along with their TV shows too, which there's a lot of great things on Apple TV Plus, and a lot of people make a joke that they're like, hey, let's get this like big prestige cast and like let's throw all this money into it and then just drop it on the platform and see what happens without promoting it.
Not telling anybody about it.
Not telling anybody about it. And they had some. You said Killers of the Flower Moon. It's not like it didn't make money, but it was a $200 million movie that didn't gross that worldwide. Napoleon was another one that did 220 worldwide, but it had a $200 million budget, so that doesn't break even really.
Mm-hmm.
Argyle was another expensive bomb for them. Fly Me to the Moon was another expensive bomb for them over the summer.
Maybe it has to do with that.
I mean, I guess it has to do with that. But I mean, and it sucks because they were one of the platforms that was so big on like, we'll give you a theatrical release and then put it on streaming later. I guess they do have to pivot in their own way to kind of, no matter how much money you're making, it still sucks to bleed money, I guess.
Exactly.
But I don't know how I feel still about, even if they got paid less than what they're saying, that's absurd amount of money.
That is absurd. But again, it's the studio's fault for making that precedent and signing that dotted line. I don't blame them for, getting that bag, but that is absolutely insane. Just you're doomed from the start by sending 70 million just on 2 actors.
Yeah,
Just
agreed.
just negligent spending.
Yep. All right, our
What
next
else we
one.
got?
You mentioned Tarantino, so this is a good one to lob it up to because he
Okay.
said some controversial things about guns in movies that people are kind of mixed
Uh,
on.
I,
Kind of
I
wanted to
I
see
did
what
see
you.
on YouTube that he was addressing the Alec Baldwin disaster, but
Yeah, so that's part of it.
I didn't watch the video. I don't know what he had to say, but I did think I was like, why is he addressing this? Who's asking him this? But anyway, what's the
Yeah.
story here?
So that's the part of it. I mean, he said that like Baldwin should be considered 10% responsible for what happened there because as an actor, he should still double check. You know, I guess the gun itself. I don't agree with that. I'm being hired as an actor to act. I'm not supposed to really know. I guess there is some training, right? They should go over things with actors, but it's still not my job. I'm not an armorer, so it's not
Yeah,
my
or a
job to.
gunsmith or a gun
Yeah,
expert.
right. So I don't agree with that. But he believes that everyone involved should bear some responsibility, even if it's just the 10% from Ali Baldwin on that. When it came to using guns in films, because like I think a few days before this interview, the people behind the New Crow, they did not use. They kind of added like all this stuff in post, basically with firearms, so they didn't even use actual like blanks or squibs or anything like that in the movie. They did it all in post production, just for
Okay.
safety. Tarantino had this to say about that. He said, I guess I can add digital erections to porno movies, but who wants to fucking watch that? It's exciting to shoot the blanks and to see the real orange fire, not add orange fire. And he went on to say, for as many guns as we've shot off in movies, we only have 2 examples of people being shot on set by a gun mishap. That's a pretty fucking good record. Before you say anything, I think 2 people is too many. So that's how I kind of feel about that. So if you want to err on the side of caution and not uh, even take a chance on that kind of mishap happening, then I don't see the problem with that. But kind of wanted to know what you thought about what he had to say and if you agree with him.
So it's the case where I don't blame the makers of The Crow, and I also don't think Tarantino is wrong. I don't think either, summation is mutually exclusive. I totally commend the production of The Crow, who have one of those 2 aforementioned fatalities on the set of the original. They have that
Yeah,
precedent that they're painfully aware of. They have to do basically go above and beyond to absolutely not have any chance of replicating that because of that baggage that remake brings with it. Obviously,
right.
Brandon Lee's tragic death. So yeah, on that basis, don't blame them at all for wanting to go as safe as possible, adding everything digital in post production. Probably the smart move.
Right.
But that being said, like, yeah, Tarantino's probably right in the sense that like going practical where possible just genuinely objectively looks better an actual gunshot versus it being
Right.
replicated on digitally. There's a difference.
Right.
But and I do agree with his record on the firearm safety, like 2 out of however many hundreds of millions of rounds that have been fired in film production, you would
Yeah.
declare that safe. I mean, automobiles probably have
Right.
a worse record than that, and people drive automobiles and they're generally declared safe. But you were totally right in that there's too many, and if a film decided we're not going to even risk blanks or squib rounds at all, they're not
Yeah.
wrong to do so. Um, but yeah, I think it's an interesting case where it's a remake of a movie that does have an infamous firearm related death on set. That
Yeah.
is the right safe move. But I don't think
Right.
Tarantino's wrong in his opinion either. I think it would look better, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't think that's the make or break deal with this movie. I know it's got
No, it's not.
universally panned for many things. I watched a review of it and I was kind of rolling my eyes. It sounded like there was a lot of missed opportunity there,
Yeah.
but yeah, interesting though. I did not know that they were doing that. That they added the firearm stuff in post.
After.
I thought the
Yeah.
trailer violence looked quite good, but not sure how it looks in the actual film itself. But I did think that Red Band trailer that first came out looked
Yeah.
really well
Look
done. But
decent.
and then
Um.
everything was downhill from there.
But now, do you think it's crass of him to say something like that, given the fatalities that we have had from the two high profile. I guess there was only someone pointed out. I forgot the name. And I wish I would have looked it up. There was a third one that a lot of people don't really talk about. But I mean, even he's not wrong about the track record. It's not a lot compared to so many movies that have
Right.
utilized guns and gun safety. A lot of there's been a slew of action movies that have used all that stuff and nothing bad has
Right.
happened. So I get the good track record, but like the two deaths are so high profile that, and I know like
Yeah.
it's Tarantino, he's gonna say whatever he wants. So
Yeah, of course.
there's that.
Is it in bad taste? Like,
Yeah,
I don't think he crosses a line. He's a very outspoken guy. I don't think he said anything outright offensive. I would probably have a more diplomatic response if I was talking about that subject so
yeah,
close to the release of this remake. But it's Tarantino we're talking about. I don't think he crossed the line. But he went a little. It is a little maybe
yeah,
time, like optically not great time wise,
yeah.
but I
Um,
don't think he's going to be canceled or anything for his opinion.
No, no. The one thing I did think about, and she hasn't said anything, but Shannon Lee, Brandon Lee's sister, and Bruce Lee's daughter, she famously has not really gotten along with Tarantino because it started with how her father was depicted in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like it was a big
Right.
she viewed as like a kind of walking, talking stereotype, and then he was portrayed as being very cocky and arrogant.
Yeah,
Um,
very not
and
much like the actual Bruce Lee.
she did not like that. And then now, I mean, not like he directly referenced 1994's The Crow and what happened with Brandon Lee. But that was her brother, and that's how she lost her brother. So that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, like they've already had choice words with each other before. He's
Yeah,
never had choice words back at her. He's always been kind of respectful.
right.
I think because he knows, as a
Yeah,
sister and a daughter to that family, she is still a legacy just because she's attached by
yep.
name. So I don't think he would ever say anything crass. But that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh man, like I know you're not directly referencing what happened to Brandon Lee, but it's still such a part of
He's
that
very
dialogue.
absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
it's still very much a part of it. So it's a tricky one. I mean, when I saw the quote, I was like, that seems like you said. I was like, that seems in poor taste. I mean, if they choose not to do that, then more power to them. But he
sure.
also is a walking, talking film encyclopedia and wants things to look as real as they can look and be as authentic as they
Exactly.
can.
And
So
I love his movies for that.
I see his point, but I was just like, oh, it's like one of those times where you have like if you have like a crazy uncle that says things out of line at like the family
Yeah,
barbecue or like Christmas dinner, you're
right.
like, oh no, why do we
Yeah,
let Uncle
just
Larry
like
talk?
there's people you don't bring up politics around because of stuff like this, and you just better
Yep.
off not mentioning it. But again,
We're
like I
like,
don't think
here
he
we go.
quite crossed anything. He didn't say anything he couldn't take back. I think he just genuinely expressed his opinion, and he's passionate about these things. And it might not be the time or place to share the opinion, but ultimately, I think he could say worse.
That's the funny thing where we're like, where Tarantino, like, well, he could have said something a lot worse, so maybe we should just
Yeah.
go with that. That's kind of funny though to think. Another big story that kind of has come out fairly big if you're a big Lord of the Rings fan is that Ian
Oh
McKellen
God.
said that he has been approached to reprise his role as Gandalf in Andy
Oh.
Serkis's The Hunt for Gollum. Um, he said, the quote, enthusiasm for the Lord of the Rings shows no sign of abating. I can't tell you any more than that, other than he's been approached. I've just been told there are going to be more films and Gandalf will be involved, and they hope that I'll be playing him. When? I don't know what the script is. It's not written yet, so they better be quick. Because he is old. That's what I add that he's old part, but he said so they
Wow.
better be quick. But the idea of him coming back and being in it, do you think that would
That's exciting. That's
make you
exciting.
make you want to be more interested in this new one that they're
It,
doing?
it would. I truthfully, like, when you first mentioned Lord of the Rings, my brain went right to the release of season 2 of Rings of Power. I actually completely
Yeah,
forgotten about the Hunt for Gollum movie in production. So yeah, absolutely having Ian McKellen back as Gandalf, I would imagine they would at least do something to de-age him. It wouldn't have to be that egregious
yeah,
because
he's
he was so
85.
old. Yeah, he was old in the 2000s
Yeah,
playing
he has
Gandalf
looked old
originally.
since we began playing Magneto and Gandalf, and around the
Yeah,
same time that those movies were coming out. So if
yeah,
he thought he looked old then, and he thought he was old then, well, he's 85 now. So I
yeah.
get his
Oh
whole
my
comment
goodness.
like they better be quick if they're putting these
Yeah,
together.
I
I
think
think it
that'd
would
be
give it a
cool.
little credibility if he's in it. Um, 'Cause I think we talked about it before when they were bringing this up, like when we brought it up the first time. Like, do we want another one? Do we need one? We know why they're doing it because they're all about. They talked before they're gonna milk IPs that are lucrative for all their worth. So there's that. But Andy Serkis is directing it, so that's good news.
Right, that is great.
If there's some to be had. But yeah, I think that would lend a little credibility if they're able to get him. But yeah, like you said, they're pretty quick. I mean, I love when old people can joke about their age and like they're like, "Hey, like my days are kind of
Yeah,
numbered, so please be
nice to
quick
be able to
if you're
do
gonna
that.
do this."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would lend a little credibility to it if he is attached to it, and if there's a place for him in it, then that would be good.
I'd like to see it.
Would be good.
Definitely. Well, I guess we'll be paying attention to
that. This other one I wanted to throw at you to see if you agree with. These are actually some fun stories that I probably would have done with Merc, but they're more a little bit fluffy but fun. And
okay.
It will be kind of cool to get your opinion on it. There was a unnamed producer that they won't say who it is, but an unnamed producer said last week that, like we mentioned, Glenn Powell being a movie star, said that Powell is the biggest up and coming movie star in Hollywood, but then gave Ryan Gosling a backhanded compliment while saying that. Said Powell is officially a movie star in the sense that audiences now go to the movies to see him. But the comment included some Gosling shade, as the producer added. Unlike an actor like Ryan Gosling, whose appeal is mostly limited to female audiences, Glenn appeals to both females and males. Do you agree with that? Or do you think there's actually evidence saying that like one appeals to both genders over the other, or has more universal appeal than the other?
I think to suggest that Ryan Gosling only like excites the female audience is ludicrous. He's literally one of the foremost examples like in meme culture to represent men. Like he is like super popular online, like his persona and the different characters that he's played, especially like Drive, like Ken. Like these are roles that dudes look at.
I'm glad you mentioned Drive first, because like when I thought about like not appealing to a male audience, I was like, guys love Drive. That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, 100%. Place Beyond the Pines, right?
That's like, another awesome one. The Nice Guys is probably more male driven than female driven.
100%. Yeah.
And now, of course, he's made movies that appeal to women too. Like
of course.
He did Barbie. That was a big example last year. He did Crazy Stupid Love. I think that appeals to both, but that is a more female-driven movie. But like
The Notebook,
the guys like that movie too. The Notebook's another one that is
I love The Notebook, by the way. Yeah,
but guys tend to like that too. I mean, that's one of the one romance movies that most guys would say, "Oh yeah, I dug that one." I think the difference between the two of them, and I don't take the whole. I still think we need a couple more examples of box office hits from Glenn Powell to say that he is a true movie star, because what this is being based on is Top Gun Maverick, but that would have done well with a reality. He was a co-star, supporting player in it.
Right.
It didn't make all that money because of him. So I kind of throw that one out. Anyone But You is yeah. Oh, great. What? I don't. If you want.
I was just gonna say the great first example, great movie for him to be a part of. Yeah. And a great way to make a name for himself. But by no means is he the star power in that movie. But yes, Anyone But You. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, and also clearly taking lessons from Tom Cruise. Though they seem to be very close, and they seem to be. I think he is following that same motif of how to appeal to everyone, and that's smart. Anyone But You. That is him, but you could argue that's a dual effort of him and Sydney Sweeney. That wasn't just him.
She's also quite popular in her own right.
Great. And Twisters, I can contribute that to some of him, but it's still a big summer effects driven movie that is a large part of why that movie did well too. I don't think it's just him. So yes, he has a ton of movies lined up, but they haven't come out yet, and we don't know how well they're going to do. So I think it's kind of too early to say that he is a true movie star. I think there is potential and there's appeal, and I can see why people say it. But I also think we need more examples to officially give him that label. Even something like Hitman, I wonder if that would have came out in theaters, if it would have done as well theatrically. I know it got good reviews, and mostly from critics. Now, I know a lot of people that when it came out on Netflix didn't love it as much as critics did, but critics really liked Hitman. I was like, would that have done well theatrically? I don't really know. Right. and he's different from Ryan Gosling too, because again, not taking anything away from Glenn Powell, but Ryan Gosling has shown more range as an actor across all of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can get offbeat, weird movies from Ryan Gosling,
Yeah.
like Lars and the Real Girl. You can get really deep, emotionally scarring movies from Ryan Gosling, like Blue Valentine.
Right.
You can get something like fluffy and popcorn driven, like Barbie and The Fall Guy.
He's
I mean,
a
like,
chameleon, right?
yeah. So I think it's kind of all based to kind of say he doesn't have the same appeal. It's funny, when I was watching TMZ, everyone in that when this story broke, everyone in the office it was split on who appeals to both, who appeals to women more, who women like more. I mean, it was a big discussion. Um, and to his credit, Glenn Powell on his X page, when the story broke, all he wrote was, "Gosling is a legend. I'm just Glenn," which is probably a play on the whole like I'm just Glenn song with Barbie.
That's funny.
Again, he plays the movie star game really well, because he's not gonna publicly say like, "Yeah, I'll buy that. I'm cool that producer said that nice thing about me," because you can't just shade Ryan Gosling in the process,
No, don't
But I thought it
even
was interesting.
go there.
Yeah, but do you think Glenn Powell needs more hits under his belt before we throw that movie star label on him?
Yeah, I think he needs, maybe, even if not hits, I'd like to see how time is kind to his career, because I know more so than just the number of projects that people have under their belt these days, it really seems to be the timing of people's careers. Like, you'll go through months where somebody is super hot right now, and then they don't release something for a year and they kind of fizzle out. So I'd like to see, like, if people are still talking about him in the next couple of years, if he is still making good work, that might be a good indicator. I think he absolutely is a rising star. His potential is moving upward, and if he keeps this, even if he does have a couple of misses here and there, I still think he could come back from that. I think he is really talented. I really can't wait to see what he does going forward. I still got to see Hitman and Twisters.
I did watch Twisters as well.
I
forgot to mention that at the beginning of the episode. I did watch that before I watched Trap.
Cam was telling me that he saw that too. He said it was fun, nothing to write home about. He said it was kind of a carbon copy of the original, but if you like the original, then you're going to like this one.
That's exactly what I would say.
I happen to like the first one, so.
I did too. Both very good leads too. Glenn Powell was good in it. Daisy Everett was good in it too. Great female lead. They've actually been writing the same thing about her, and I was like, she needs another hit too before you start saying that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd say he has more of a case than her,
because I know that Crawdads movie made money, but she hasn't been in a bunch of hits yet. So like, it seems so weird to give her that. You know what? I think a better example would be someone like Zendaya, right? Has been in like a lot of box office hits, like the Spider-Man movies and Dune. I think how you prove if you have name above the title box office recognition, if you release something like a Challengers, which doesn't have like box office appeal written on it, but you're able to turn that into a hit. I think that gives you more of that label than coming at us with like Twisters, which is not bad. I mean, those are big entertainment Hollywood movies, like, and they do well.
But it's a different challenge, right? Yeah.
But there's a bigger, a different challenge, and it's a bigger challenge they'll put into to make a movie like Challengers make money. Made $92 million worldwide and made all its money back. So that is, I think that's a better litmus test of like how you determine who is a movie star. And of course, who is a movie star has changed so much since like the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, we talk about Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet and Florence Pugh, and Austin Butler. These are who a lot of the trades are saying are movie stars now. I know we love them and they put in good work. But there could be an argument that even they might need more big or mainstream hits before you say that their name can sell a movie entirely. Like, I love Florence Pugh, but I don't even think that her name alone makes the movie a hit. But others might disagree. But I think it takes more than like what people are saying for that to really happen.
Yeah.
So just a couple more before you do box office. I wanted to throw this one at you. I saw on Instagram story that I think your mom was reading It Ends With Us.
Yes. Oh man.
It has made a lot of money. $300 million worldwide so far on a $25 million budget. This is despite all the controversy surrounding whether Blake Lively and the director Justin Baldoni, who's also a co-star in the movie. Whether or not
Mm-hmm.
they, well, it's not whether or not, it's known that something's wrong. There's some kind of
Right.
rift between the two of them. There is a sequel book called "It Starts With Us," and Sony Pictures would love to do it. I would guess if
No doubt, yeah.
you made $25 million movie and it's cleared $300 million. The issue is Justin Baldoni optioned the rights to "It Ends With Us" and "It Starts With Us." He doesn't have
Oh.
to. He doesn't have to star in the sequel, or he doesn't even have to direct it. But his Wayfarer Studio banner was the banner that optioned the book. So even if Blake Lively came back and was in the movie, and she didn't have to work with him on set and do scenes with him, or be an actress to his director, he'd still be a producer on the project, and she'd still be working for him.
Right.
They say that that's why the sequel is up in the air right now, because they can't imagine a place right now where they actually work together again. And this has still been an ongoing story since the movie opened, with so many people commenting on it. And I think you've seen that they pulled up old interviews of Blake Lively where she looks less than
Oh,
likable.
yes.
Stuff from like
Yeah.
2016, and I admit that like the ones I saw, the two I watched were very
We're
much
bad.
like they weren't good. But on the other hand, I know how press junkets can be for actors, and they get annoyed when they've been doing them too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that doesn't excuse doesn't fly, because it's like, yo, it's your job, just promote your movie and suck it up and do
And
the
her
interview.
behavior to that one interview when for Cafe Society was
Yeah, where she,
just
yeah,
bitchy, man.
yeah.
No other
I
way to
had
say it.
one girlfriend that said like, she's like, I'm gonna like defend her, and I know this is gonna sound so bad, and I shouldn't, but she was like, the lady said, oh, like she basically commented like, oh, I noticed your nice little baby bump, or commented on it. She's like, there's a way to say that a woman is pregnant without saying it in a way that might offend, and some girls take things. She said, I don't want to attribute this to me because I don't know how women feel about their body. I'm not a woman, but this is what
Right.
the one girl said. It's like, hey, like it. Her hearing the clip, it came out to her in a way that didn't sound that complimentary. I don't think the lady was trying to be rude, but women are sensitive when you comment on their bodies and stuff like that. Should the
Right.
comeback have been like, oh, like let me congratulate you on your nice little baby bump, when clearly that interviewer was not pregnant.
Right.
Was probably not the nice thing to say. And also, if you've done press junkets, I mean, I've done a few of them before. We're usually not supposed to comment on uh, the looks at
Appearance and
all
stuff.
of the
Yeah,
actors and
that
stuff.
would be
So
a good play. Yeah.
and then there was the other interview where Jake's this guy Jake's Takes, he's a pretty big personality on X, and he also does critic reviews and press stuff for a news station in Chicago. He actually tried to ask her a very serious question about the domestic abuse part of It Ends With Us, the themes, and if if people come up to her in the streets and like ask her like, hey, like, how she felt about those teams, and what would she uh think to do if like if they're in a similar situation, like what did the movie make her think about what she would do, and how, and she kind of took what he said, the what did people approach you part, and kind of ended with that, and started making kind of crass jokes. They were like, oh, should I give them my social security number or my phone number? Got kind of rude.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I mean, she's married to Ryan Reynolds. Maybe she gets it from him. I don't know. He said that she's actually funnier than he is, so maybe she is like secretly just a sarcastic thing behind the scenes. Um,
Right.
but that being said, there's just been a lot of stuff. Her brother-in-law, who I did not know was the coach from High School Musical, I guess her sister's married to him. I
Okay.
did not know that at all. He has basically said that the truth behind all this stuff has not come out yet, and he doesn't like the kind of demonizing her. Um, but
Sure. That's a
uh,
valid point.
But do you think there's any road to a sequel being made when the two creatives, whether or not, even if he chooses not to star in it, are directed? Because his character is in the sequel book from what I read.
Okay.
Is there a road where they can do it? I know when this was brought up in person with a group of friends, I said personally, I would suck it up and just do it, because I'm like, whatever, it's gonna be a big payday.
Put your
I
before
I
your
already ahead of
interpersonal
your personal
relationships.
feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm not working directly with this person, I don't have to be on set, share scenes. That'd be harder to do, I think. Be directed by them would be harder. to do.
Yeah.
And in his case, I don't want to assume that she was the only wrong party here. If he felt disrespected, I don't know if I could maybe personally direct that person again
Mm.
or act alongside them. But it is a business, and it's just like it's your job. So do you just suck it
It's
up and do it?
professionalism. Like,
What do you think about that? Like, is there a road to where this gets done, or if it's just like, are they right to just stay in their separate quarters and not even try to get a sequel made?
well, you know what? Based on the success of this movie, I think a sequel is imminent. How that plays out, anybody's guess at this point. I don't think a couple years for tensions to cool down is a terrible idea. Too often we see sequels to successful movies like literally shit out off the production line immediately, like the next year or two.
Yeah,
Like, why not start production in a couple years when they're over and figure out whatever tension there is between them? Like, there's nothing to suggest they have to start filming January 2025, right? Like, I think a
yeah,
couple of years might aid that production, might make it more likely that that sequel goes smoothly.
yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to see. I have no interest in this movie, truthfully, but like if they are looking to make a sequel, if there's the demand and the potential for it to be as successful,
Yeah.
and you said it's Sony is the producing company,
Yep. And I know they're
so
mad.
no doubt, no
I
doubt.
would be mad too. I'd be like, man, this is like, it's such an easy thing to follow up, right? You already have like, it's not like you're
Yeah,
making up a sequel. You're not just writing. Like, it's not like a Big Little Lies situation where season 2 isn't even based on the book. Like, the other book's there
right.
for you to
Yeah,
adapt. I think I'd
I
be
just
so mad if I was that like ahead of that studio. Like, figure it out, please.
I think the tortoise wins the race here. Like, just take it slow. There's no reason to rush into production. Like, let these people figure it out. But that being said, you're right. You got to maintain that momentum. I wouldn't let too much time go by. It's a matter of finding that perfect balance, that Goldilocks zone, I guess. Um, so I would say, but 2 to 3 years in between related movies is used to be the norm. I think
Yeah.
that wouldn't be a terrible idea to try that approach. It's a
I
shame
honestly
though if they
think
can't
that's
let it get made.
let it, yeah, and I think that's enough time to let cooler heads possibly prevail. Uh,
Totally, should be.
um, I mean, and like I said, like to what her brother-in-law said, and like what other people seem to be hinting at, I still feel if it had just been her that's avoiding him, I think I would be like, oh, this must be a her and him thing. The most of the cast, like they unfollowed him on Instagram. They haven't taken pictures or done interviews with him. Um, Now, one argument can be made that like they want to support the bigger name and kind of stick with her. Um,
Right.
but I also think there's a reason for that. Like that, there's a reason that maybe he did do something that was off-putting and that they didn't like they thought was disrespectful. So that
Perhaps.
I think it is kind of weird that like part of the narrative is that they spun this to make her look bad in a really more public way than him. Um,
That was interesting. Yeah.
yeah, did she handle promoting the movie wrong? One argument is so
Uh,
like when I heard it, I had never heard of the book, never read the book, didn't know anything about it. I was surprised to learn that there's a the big plot element of this. It deals with domestic abuse. I never got that impression when I heard about
nor
the
did
movie,
I until
or
the
saw
movie's being marketed.
or even saw like some of the first trailer for it. It plays it more like a romance rather than what it really is about. So,
Right.
and then her doing press and being like, oh, dress up in all your best floral and take your girlfriends does kind of seem like more superficial. So I get
Yes.
that part. But on the other side of things is that she's a producer on this movie, and your job as a producer is to sell it, and you want your movie to make money. So from a
And she
business
did that
standpoint, yeah,
successfully.
a business standpoint, I don't blame her. So I don't really know where to like lie when it comes to like how she handled promoting the movie. As like maybe the optics were bad, but as a businesswoman, it was smart.
Yes,
so,
exactly. You're right.
so
Optically, it was bad. Financially, it made sense. I think this is one of those cases where there's no right or wrong answer.
well,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
it worked in one way while it didn't work in another way, but it did the ultimate goal. Like, I don't know if that movie would have been as successful to, like, for instance, like maybe to audience members that weren't familiar with the book, because obviously the fans of Colleen Hoover and her novels are already the target audience. They're likely going to see this
right,
movie and bring
right,
their significant other to date night. But if you're
right,
trying to market this to somebody that's not familiar with the book, that might be looking to go out on a Tuesday night to a movie, which one do I go watch? If you're saying,
yeah,
come watch our movie that's about domestic violence, and like you're
Yeah,
being
right.
too reserved. Like, is that really going to draw you out to go see that movie? Like,
Yeah,
probably not. So I think that as bad optically that it looked, Blake Lively
yeah,
kind of got the message across and did
yeah,
the thing that was right for the movie's box office appeal. So it's just
yeah. I
depends on
agree with you on
which
that.
side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah, and I actually I know that there's a little bit of a joke in what you said about how like but every interview you did couldn't come off as a PSA for domestic violence. I mean that would be too
Exactly.
that'd be too much too. So I
I
mean
think so.
and and then he's hired a PR team, a crisis PR team, Justin Baldoni, since this all happened, and since he hired them,
Okay.
now he's releasing all these like you know all these stances against domestic violence. We're like, oh, I see you, we see you, and I'm not saying it's not genuine. It comes off more disingenuous when you start doing this more after you hired a crisis PR team. Uh, Post all the negative stuff about you since the movie came out. Yeah. Now to his credit,
I looked
when
at
they
it, right?
yeah,
Yep.
well, to his credit, when he was interviewed initially on the few interviews he has done for the movie, he was the main one that was bringing up the themes of the film more properly than
Yes.
like Lively was. Now, post PR team, like if you have to keep releasing stuff about domestic violence, I'm not saying it's not genuine. It just comes off a little bit disingenuous if you are trying to also salvage an image too, I guess.
I looked at his marketing as counter programming to Blake's, where like clearly the biggest star and the biggest name attached to this movie is bringing people to the movie, quote, like for the wrong reasons. And
Yeah.
he's looking at it like, I still have a message that's dear to me about why I wanted to adapt this film, and she's not going to be promoting that message, so it's left to me to do this. That's how I interpreted it. I would
Okay.
be
All right.
interested to know what's going on behind the scenes about why the cast and
This
Blake and
became
him are
such
at
like
odds.
this became such a big thing, and it didn't
Yeah.
hurt the film's box office. I mean, it's still.
No,
I mean,
clearly. I did
if
not know it
anything,
did
it
those
kind of.
numbers.
Yeah, if anything, it probably made more people curious to go see it.
True. They say there's no
That
such thing as
weren't.
bad press.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's pretty cool. So yeah, that I mean, it's a really difficult situation, I guess.
Yeah.
And the real victim here is Sony Pictures because they probably want a sequel made so
Yeah.
bad. But I agree with you. Give it 2 or
Mhm.
3 years, and they'll be, maybe they come to Jesus moment, and they apologize to each other, like whatever.
I bet we'll get it. It's just a matter of time.
Unless one or the other did something completely egregious, and there's no room for apologies, and then that might
Right.
not be the case.
Mhm.
But yeah, all right. I'm gonna throw some box office stuff at you for predictions, I guess.
Okay.
We're coming up a little past an hour here. To all my girlfriends, since we don't cover TV a lot, I'm not gonna talk about the story. I will just throw it out there because you told me to mention it, and you guys do listen, and I told you I would mention it to all my girlfriends that listen to the podcast.
You're a man of your
Yes,
word.
there is a One Tree Hill Secret series coming to Netflix. It's finally happening. I know a lot of you, a lot of you love One Tree Hill. I had the option in 2003 to choose between the OC and One Tree Hill. I chose the OC to watch over the two that premiered that year. It did run for 9 seasons back in the day on the WB and CW. It's super popular. Hilary Barton and Sophia Bush are coming back for this sequel series. They were both on the original show. The show originally starred Chad Michael Murray. It looks like he won't be back for the sequel series. Him and Sophia Bush do not get along. They definitely dated while on the show. They definitely got married, and he allegedly cheated on her soon after that. So there's that.
Chad.
Yeah, not good. So yeah, it's happening. You guys maybe guys are too are very excited that it's coming back to Netflix. Whatever is old is new again, and that gives me hope for a OC sequel series. I don't need it, but I will take it if they want to give it to us. So I'm glad you're here for this episode to do box office predictions for Beetlejuice. That is a big movie opening this weekend. Reviews are already out. It has a 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good for that. I mean, I think some people were worried that it would just be a cash-in legacy sequel, and the good reviews say that it is not. Like, it feels
Trailers
like it has a really
have been
good
awesome. I've really been enjoying the marketing.
Really good. They really dig the story. They say Michael Keaton's back in top Beetlejuice form. They said that Winona Ryder and Jenna Ortega have a really fun, like, mother-daughter dynamic chemistry in the movie. By the way, if you watch any interviews lately or all the press for this, Winona Ryder has found a new best friend in Jenna Ortega. She seems to have they bonded like crazy. I guess Jenna Ortega has a mad deep knowledge of movies, like more so than
Good.
anyone her age would usually have. And
She'd
Winona
probably be
Ryder
great
said that
co-host or
yeah, it's
guest
probably
on
on
this
here.
podcast.
Yeah. Winona Ryder said she'd be throwing movies at her, like mentioning certain directors, and Jenna Ortega would like mention like a movie from like an obscure one from that director, and Winona Ryder's like, "Oh my god, you're my person." I mean, I guess they like bonded super quick,
Nice.
and because
That's
it's
awesome.
funny. I think Winona Ryder, and I don't think she referenced the Stranger Things kids directly, but she had once made a comment about how some of the kids that she works with who are TV stars and movie stars, they don't seem to have an appreciation or respect for film.
Oh,
And
that's
even though she
disappointing.
did, and even though she didn't name the Stranger Things kids, everyone, especially pointed to Millie Bobby Brown, kind of made a comment like that she doesn't really like movies that much.
Yeah, I
So
remember
like,
that.
so it's cool that they seem to like really bonded, and I might come across on screen really well. Catherine O'Hara is also getting a lot of good reviews from the film. She's in the original movie as well, so it should be fun. They say Tim Burton's back in top form, so excited.
Awesome. I
For
can't
that.
wait. I love Tim Burton. I want to see him do well.
So
how's this movie tracking?
The low end, we have another high low end. Low end is $85 million opening weekend. The high end is 110 right now. Could go up. But 110 right now is a high end. It's going to be one of the biggest September openers ever, and one of the biggest openers of the year. So if it hits those numbers, what are you thinking? And it's hard to compare this one to the original in '87 because
yeah,
time, a lot of time.
What? Okay, you said high end's 110, low end is what now?
85.
85.
Still
okay,
big.
it's quite big.
Still
quite
big either
gap.
way. Yeah.
What just opened to over 100 million? Was it Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah, that was the last one.
Was that the last thing? So clearly, people are going to the theater. We're getting in the fall season. Legacy sequel, like one of the first like spooky season releases.
Yeah, that too.
Theatrically anyway. I want to
play
go
really well in October as well.
Yeah,
too. Like it might have some legs.
Might have legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some long legs. My brain wants to spit out the number 95, so I'm gonna go 95 million opening. That'd be great for this movie. Do we know what the budget is up against?
Question. I can look at that.
That's one thing I don't ever remember talking about.
I know they did a lot of this. I think a lot of it practical, but that tends to be really expensive. So let me pull it up. I'm glad the reviews were good though. That was the one thing I'd be worried about. It was like that would suck if it wasn't like a true return to form for Tim Burton.
Right.
And plus, people are always nervous about sequels anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they being made because they need to be made, or are they being made
rarely?
Yeah. Let's see what they have. That's just the original movie. Let's see. What they got. Reportedly $100 million budget.
Okay, so regardless, if this movie, even if it doesn't meet tracking, it's still probably going to do well against 100 million. Yeah, it's still 95. That'd be great. No. Where are you leaning?
I'll go with the big kids. I'll go 110. I'll go right at the high.
Oh, the big kids. Okay. That's a significant gap for our predictions. Like, what's 15 million? You don't see that every day.
I kind of think that there is a shot because I think fans of. I guess there is. I don't know how much of a new generation really responds to it, but I think there's enough appeal where it looks interesting enough for a new generation where they'll go see it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm gonna go big because like we haven't had like it's been a few weeks since a really big release. I mean, Alien Romulus at 41.
Yes, and that movie's as of yesterday. My last figure I saw worldwide was 280.
Yeah.
So that's awesome for that movie.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with going with what they say here. I'll do 110.
Awesome. I can't wait. I hope it was really my intention to watch the OG again, but just schedule is not really looking like it'll give me that chance. Maybe in and amongst my studies, if I can stream it somewhere. I don't really have access to my Blu-ray player at school, so I will try and see if I can get it somewhere. I might break up the watch, and then I'm anticipating watching this when I'm home next weekend too. Cam and I were talking about going to see it, so I will be some of those box office dollars anyway. I imagine you will be seeing it probably opening night or before.
Yeah, I'll be seeing it on opening night, and and if you do need Beetlejuice, you can't get your Blu-ray player, I can send you a copy.
All right,
if you can watch
I'll hit you up. My movie plug.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I think that's it. I can wrap us on up.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for pitching all these stories to me. A lot of those I was not familiar with. It's been nice to get back situated with the mainstream stuff and just chat movies about, because like not really many people in my class I have to chat movies with, if any. So this has been nice and refreshing. And yeah, I guess this wraps up episode 192 of Back to the Blockbuster. It was great to be back on for regular scheduled programming. You guys can expect me on next week for an episode or two, as well, as I will be home and should look like regular. I guess we'll have to probably find some spooky season movies to get in. So I will definitely be doing my homework. But yes, it was great. Thank you too for everyone that's joining in on the show in my absence, and especially you, Merc, and all the friends of the show that have been guest spotting with Gaius in my absence. It's been much appreciated. It's been great. Shouldn't be too much longer. Really looking forward to coming back and being on regularly. But in the meantime, I know that we're in good hands. Of course, Gaius, always a pleasure talking movies with you. And I know that we'll be in touch over the week. Fans, by now, if you don't know, you guys can find us anywhere you guys can find access to podcasts. Of course, though, playlists, you guys can find their app at any store for no matter what device you guys have, and you can listen to us right from their app. They're fantastic, very user friendly. Shout out to playlists, and still lots of good stuff coming to the show before the end of the year. And I can't wait to be back chatting movies with you guys on the regular. But in the meantime, been great to be back. Looking forward to next week, and we'll see you guys at episode 193.
Yep, and just to kind of piggyback on what he said, you said, he will have some time to do a couple episodes coming up. We haven't released Inglourious Basterds yet, so he's on that. We're gonna break these up to where you won't entirely fill his episodes all the time.
Yeah, you might not even notice it, honestly.
Yeah, like I said, we haven't released the American Pie episode I did with Mark, but he sent in an audio clip for us to add in, so he's still a part of that. And even some of the spooky season stuff that he can't do for Tales of Horror, maybe we'll just have him like do some little short video audio stuff that we can use as reels. So he will still be a part of the stuff that we're doing, even if he's not on the full episode. So we'll try to make it seem like it looks like he's still here the whole time. At least we'll do the best we can.
You won't even know. It'll be so quick.
Yeah.
Yes, like thank you for including me though in my.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also 200, we'll be doing that together. So a lot coming up together, some stuff coming up apart, but still very much a cohesive team at Back to the Blockbuster. So thank you for listening, as always, as Jackson said, and we will see you next time.
Peace, guys.